Tuesday evening, 6 p.m. UK time. This is the Spiritual Discussion Program. I am Saad in Southeast London, and with me soon will be Gregory joining me as usual. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abdushin. And every week we have a new topic for discussion. The topic tonight is the key to freedom and happiness. I'm just going to let Gregory join us. I'm trying to connect him now. So if you can be a little bit patient with me, it's that we are using a new system today to have our radio show. Let me see. How can I do that now? Okay. I'm having a little difficulty, so I'm going to check something in a minute before I do that. So as I said, the topic tonight is the key to freedom and happiness. You're welcome to join us with by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. I'm just going to check. Gregory, are you with us now?
Yes, I am.
Welcome to the show. I had a little bit of a, how can I say, learning curve there. So welcome to the show. How are you doing, Gregory? And how is the weather where you are?
The weather is bright but cold.
Okay. Here right now, it is overcast. It's been cold today. Little windy, just slightly windy, but a bit cold. There was a bit of sunshine. So yes, welcome. So, dear listeners, I was telling you how to join in the show with any questions or comments. I've told you the phone number to contact us, our UK number. There's another way you can contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting. That is blessradio1, that's the number one, .com. And if you scroll down on the homepage, you'll see a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. I'm going to begin with, what is the Grail Message? The Grail Message, in the light of truth, by Abdushin, is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life. For through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail Message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover through the intuitive perception if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises. sorry, I've lost my place. I'll just go and find that. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover through the intuitive perception if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter of fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail Message, Abrushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail Message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole without leaving any gaps. Again and again, in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail Message lives, so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with seven seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, just to remind you, the topic that we are discussing tonight is the key to freedom and happiness. The key to freedom and happiness. You're welcome to join us with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, and that is if you're in UK, you would contact us on this number, which is 079 You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 00447939641958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there is one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting. That is blessradio1, that's the number one.com. If you scroll down on the home page, you'll see a box called Bless Chat. And there you can type in any questions or comments. Gregory, you know I like to begin the discussion with looking at the meaning of the words in the topic. So again, everyone, the topic tonight is the key to freedom and happiness. So the first, let's say, key word is key. And in the dictionary, I found three meanings. The first one, a small piece of shaped metal with incisions cut to fit the wards of a particular lock, which is inserted into a lock and turned to open or close it. Gregory, how good is this for our discussion?
Well, thanks. First, one must try to consider the context. That which you're finding in the dictionary are only earthly concepts based on what is readily available. So the word key, the picture you see is there is an instrument that you put in a key, so-called in a hole, turn it this way or the other way, and then you are able to pass through. That is the most common. In other scenarios, you'll find that there is, in so-called world of IT, there's this authentication. So one can already see a picture coming up. To authenticate you means you must have a key to be able to pass through. So intellectually, these satisfy the picture, what many refer to as keys. However, the basis of our discussions is not only intellectual and earthly perceptions, but something more than that, which is also spiritual perceptions. So, spiritually, you find it presents a more comprehensive picture. But for now, we will accept that which the dictionary has given as a little pointer which can be used.
Thank you for that, Gregory. As I said, there are more than one, there are three definitions given here. So let's see if the other ones are more helpful. Let's see. So the other one is, or second one is, so this is the meaning of the word key. Each of the several buttons on a panel for operating a computer, typewriter, or telephone. So, Gregory, anything to add? I think it's what you already answered there. Anything to say more on this one?
No, what we had already discussed that.
Right. Okay, so the third one, which is a bit different, it says, again, the meaning of the word key, it says of crucial importance. How about this one? Is that more helpful?
That is more of an adverb or is it
Adjective, I think.
adjective? Correct. So it's not um, it only qualifies of crucial importance. It's only a qualifier. So it's whereas we're not discussing the qualifiers, but the real thing.
Hmm. Okay, as we know, when we move on in this discussion, things become clearer. So, so far, as you pointed out, these are the earthly meanings we are getting from the dictionary, and we want to really get the spiritual meaning as well, to give a bigger, full picture, you can say. Okay, so again, let's move on. So, again, to remind everybody one more time, the topic tonight is the key to freedom and happiness. So, we looked at the word key. Now, let's look at the word freedom. I've got two meanings in the dictionary for this one. So, the first one, the condition or right of being able to, sorry, let me repeat that. The condition or right of being able or allowed to do, say, think, etc., whatever you want to, without being controlled or limited. So, this is the meaning of the word freedom, the condition or right of being able or allowed to do, say, think, etc., whatever you want to, without being controlled or limited. How good is this meaning now for the word freedom, Gregory?
To rephrase it, it's referring to activities without control. Whether you act or you speak is an activity. And with the addition, without being controlled. So the picture that is painted in case of freedom is that you have activities without control. That in itself should not be taken to be freedom because in that case, it becomes an arbitrary activity, which activity could be of harmful to others.
Okay, but thank you for the answer or your comment there or point there. I just want to, freedom, you have freedom to harm and freedom to do good, surely. I know I'm going to other question now, but surely freedom means you can choose what like a direction, left or right, or to do good or evil. Surely that is a choice or decision, freedom.
Well, you have jumped into decisions, whereas what was said without being controlled. That means if there are no controls, right or left, those are decisions, those are controls. That means within what's available, one is limited to that. It's one objection is that when it is added without being with, as if there are no controls,
I see.
and yeah, it
Yeah.
means generally if one says okay, the individual is permitted to do everything, which even violates the laws of creation, in which even the laws of creation or the laws of nature are not taken into consideration, then that becomes something arbitrary. For freedom itself is an activity which is based in motion. But within motion, there are types of motion in which the end of the motion flows back to the beginning. So, in that case, if one binds himself and he says, oh, I have freedom, then would that have been freedom? So, this is why one is stressing that without controls, what the dictionary has offered is too generally very vague. And one can go into it and find that, oh, there are restrictions. Freedom does not mean you can do whatever you like. At the same time, um, you can violate the laws of nature, which permitted you to come into existence.
Thank you for that, Gregory. I'm seeing two aspects of this now, Gregory. We always say there's a context. So there, and everything is there's a context. Whatever we discuss, there's a context. So in freedom, there's still a context, or let's say an environment that it operates. So that environment is that has in quotes its control on it. So that, like you say, you do have some total freedom, as if you can do anything and everything. No, because first of all, we have a capability, certain capability. You can't do beyond that capability. I know they say everything is possible, and if you put your mind to something, you'll achieve it, or you'll find a way or something. But even that's still within a context, which is the environment that you're in. You know, so for example, let's say we could go around without breathing. Well, that's not going to happen. As human beings, we have to breathe. So that one is you don't have the freedom not to breathe in a way. So that one is not real. So there's something, let me say, reality, which we must be aware of. What is the reality, the context? We must be aware of it. So we use these words willy nilly many times and not take put attention to the real context, where we are operating. So thank you there, Gregory. There's another meaning I've got in the dictionary, which is in a simplified form. It says the state of not being imprisoned or enslaved. So I don't know, Gregory, what do you say about this one?
Again, it is a pointer. Not being in prison and not enslaved. That state, which is determined by the personality itself, it doesn't mean one has to be in a state prison or a house which is caged, or it doesn't mean one has to be in the service of another in which that person receives no payment. But it could also mean that the individual has enslaved himself or herself in their thoughts.
Thank you very much, Gregory. again giving a like you say, pointer uh, into this context that we operate in, the reality that we operate in. This is, yes, we have, in quotes, well, let's say free will, and then we have thoughts and so on. This is the world that we are operating in, um, and that's what we're going to be exploring in this topic tonight. So let me continue. The third word in the topic, the key word, is happiness. So let's see. I've got two meanings again from the dictionary for this word happiness. The first one, the state of feeling or showing pleasure or contentment. How is this one, Gregory?
Contentment within within a context. That is what is referred to. So it is also a pointer that can be used.
Okay, let's see what the second one, the dictionary says. The state of having a sense of trust and confidence in a person, arrangement, or situation. Let me say that again. The state of having a sense of trust and confidence in it can be a person, arrangement, or situation. How is this meaning?
Again, these are pointers, like you can rightly say, unless subsequently one comes to consider the spiritual part. That's it when it strikes home. But from the earthly point of view, based on our everyday experiences, it suffices to a very limited extent.
Yes, I must agree with you. This doesn't really, to me, is give the real picture of what is happiness. It's a very low, small fraction, if I can say, of the true meaning of happiness, because people can have, uh, let's say, deep happiness, and these words don't portray that at all. So you can see it's a limited, in our dictionaries are limited in giving meanings, and not able to really express. Maybe I should have checked with other dictionaries to see if I could have got a better meaning there. Okay, let's continue. Now, Gregory, what I wanted to ask you there. So, in our lives on earth, can we really have true freedom and happiness? As you know, in every country, there is a government which rules over us and which may make laws which restrict our freedom and happiness. So, really, can we have a true happiness and freedom on within on the earth?
Of course, we have. However, one must consider some things very clearly. There is the intellectual happiness based on our very limited perception here on earth. And then there is the spiritual happiness, that which is intellectual, which is so limited, brings temporary relief, temporary, in quotes, happiness. Whereas that which is of spirit grants happiness which is based on the laws of creation, which persists and enables the human personality, which is of spirit, to operate in gratitude. Whereas the first type, which is referred to as the happiness which many are used to, that is more or less subdued happiness, which is very temporal. If, however, in accordance with the laws of nature, you have that the spiritual is able to communicate seamlessly. And I mean, with the earthly, what one is referring to here is that through the back brain, one's intuition becomes operational. Through the frontal brain, you now have the case of impressions which have been subdued. If, however, there is easy communication between the back brain and the frontal brain, which is the seat of the intellect, the back brain, which transfers or communicates one's intuition to the frontal brain, if it goes either way, then the frontal brain becomes like an executive director that carries out what the back brain or one's intuition intends. In that scenario, where there is harmony, then what has been achieved, what has been done, the returns brings benefits not only to the individual but also to others in nature, in creation. So in that scenario, it becomes a win-win for all those who are in the neighborhood, a win-win for everyone. Whereas in the case where you have only the intellect, the frontal brain, that is the seat of selfishness. You may find that someone who is so very selfish, who steals from others, tells you that he or she is happy. But all, such things are only temporal. It doesn't sink deep within the human personality, and therefore it is of no value. It's only of value when one looks at it superficially. And that is why there's a need to differentiate between these two. So you also have government policies which have been put in place depending on who or what type of government you have in place. If these laws have been put in place that are oppressive, then one can already imagine how people will have to, you know, conduct their lives in order to violate any situation. And from current experiences, different governments, different policies, these are all temporary things and they can change from day to day. Therefore, that which really is of true happiness, that has an impact on the spirit, for the spirit participates in that particular activity.
Thanks very much, Gregory, for this answer and picture that you have painted about, you can say, true happiness and true freedom, um, which we see on this earth, and you could say in the beyond, in the spiritual world, or what is also in the beyond. So, our experience on earth, which we are very familiar with, we think that's the only way, what happiness might be or freedom might be. But actually, that's the very narrow picture of true freedom and happiness. So all this we're going to find out more in this show as we talk further. Um, I want to let the listeners know that this is Bless Radio, and it's the Tuesday evening. This is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abtrushin. And every week we have a topic for discussion. The topic for tonight is the key to freedom and happiness. The key to freedom and happiness. You are welcome to join us with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 00447939641958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting. That is blessradio1, that's the number one, .com. If you scroll down on the home page, you'll see a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. We are also broadcasting on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number one again, space Grail Message, space the topic of the show, which tonight is the key to freedom and happiness. And you can also listen to the recording of this show after the show, which we finish at 8 p.m. Again on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type again in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number one, space Grail Message, then space again the topic of the show, which is the key to freedom and happiness. And of course, you can listen to our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno. That's ZENO.FM/Bless Radio 1. That's the number one again. And one thing I wanted to let you know, if you do wish to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, message.com. Now, Gregory, what we are seeing about this concept of freedom and happiness, you can call it this earthly concept of this freedom and happiness, and then there's the spiritual or inner freedom or happiness, or something that at least that you can experience and sense this way. So this might allow you to see this concept in the true way, rather than, let's say, our standard way of thinking that, oh, this is what earthly things are and they must be the same in all whole reality, you can say. So that's not the case. Now, so I want to know, Gregory, it's like I want to know the difference between, you could say, the inner freedom or spiritual freedom and against the earthly freedom. On earth, like I said, there's the government there. They make rules or laws. You can only do this or you cannot do that. And people can, of course, break the rules or laws. And then there are certain consequences of that. And then spiritually, let's put it this way, if Gregory, if we say let's say our mind, if you think of our mind, nobody can control our mind. If I say this spiritually, that way, we are free to think or wish, even if the wish might be, let's say, fanciful, or or even, let's say, completely fantasy, or not even in reality. It seems that you can have a thought, you know, it may not be possible in reality. For example, let's say, Gregory, a man having wings, a thought can arise that I want to have wings and I can fly just with these wings. But we know, well, at least up till now, we have not been able to develop any wings as human beings. Um, so, Gregory, just to understand, um, is there a limitation, Gregory, on the spiritual? Let's talk about freedom now. So, is there some difference between earthly freedom and spiritual freedom in terms of restrictions, what you can do or what you can think or say?
Of course, there is a whole world of difference. That which is tied to the earthly is so restricted because it is denser, and that which is so very dense is sluggish in its movement, in its motion. That which is spiritual is much lighter, and therefore its motion is swifter than that which is dense. So with that which is dense, that impression or that expression density already tells you that things are slowed down. These are great restrictions. So if one decides to compare impressions here on earth and impressions which are non-earthly, then one will find, or one, let me rephrase it, impressions within the world of matter, which is so very dense, and impressions which is above the world of matter. Those impressions above the world of matter are so powerful that you will find that saying, 1,000 years are as one day. That means the impressions of the spirit, what is able to accomplish in one day, it will take 1,008 years to accomplish that same thing. So one can already see that that which is spirit is freer to experience. After all, what is life about if there's no experience? Here on earth, the experience one is referring to is basically the day consciousness, in which the five senses have been granted to us, whereas that which is of spirit, its vibration, depending on the purity, is able to accomplish much, much more than that which one has on earth. Again, when one considers that when things earthly are discussed, there are so many restrictions which nature has put in there due to densification. Very simply, you cannot have two people. You cannot have one person passing over another person. They can't stay on the same spot. In spirit, it's not so. So there is a need to consider what density, when density is considered here on earth, what restrictions it has put in place. Because the vibrations of the earthly are very low, whereas the vibrations of the spirit are swift. More of this, the individual who is discerning can find out for themselves in the walk in the light of truth, the Grail Message.
Thanks very much, Gregory, for this explanation. And it seems very exciting, actually, that with the spirit we can have experience which is equivalent to 1,000 Earth years in one spiritual day. Uh, in a way, it's unbelievable, I can say, to think like that, or that you can do that, um, since we don't even live 1,000 years on this earth. Um, but that's incredible experiencing. Um, Obviously, so that tells you you could say the time. Uh, I don't know how I was going to say time scale, but it's more about how different the times are in these two worlds, this earthly world and the spiritual world. Um, so yes, and so yes, that's something to let's say think about there. And you can even imagine, uh, let's say, if you look at happiness, the amount, if I can measure, if you can measure these things, measure freedom and measure happiness. Is it possible to measure these things? On earth we like to be say somebody is the greatest, or this is the best day, but that is so minuscule compared to measuring things in this spiritual world. I'm just reflecting on it now. Now, Gregory, let me look at another aspect of this happiness, or you can say, people think, oh, once you have money or resources, then you can achieve happiness, and you know, and you get comforts in life. Somehow, this is looked at as if uh, bring you happiness. But we know there's another point which is called health. It doesn't matter how rich you are; your health can be, um, it doesn't matter. You can be affected by the same things that anybody is affected. The money cannot save you there. Um, so I just want to understand now, Gregory, this happiness. If we reflect about it on this earth for a moment, um, how does it come, Gregory, this happiness on this earth? Is it the material, earthly um, comforts or resources? Or is there something else that is supposed to bring the happiness?
Thanks for this particular question, and one we try to approach it from not only a high point, but generally, many consider that wealth brings happiness, and that is fundamentally true. The more wealthy a person is, the happier the person is. However, that expression wealth has been considered very wrongly. There have been say a measure when wealth is mentioned of the quantity of material resources that the individual has control over. However, you mentioned some other thing, which is the health. And therefore, people have said that health is wealth. But it doesn't stop there. There are many who, through their activities, like those who are involved in the arts, who are able to produce a work of art which brings happiness to many. That work of art could be a very simple song, could be some form of drawing, could be some music composed. These are all signs of wealth of an individual. There are others who, in their activities, have wisdom, they are patient, they persevere, they show all sorts of things to be able to assist the individual human personality. These are the wealth which many are unable to hold in their hands. But deep within them, when they meet with someone, they are able to sense this from these persons. In that case, one would say that person is wealthy. So you find that because that expression wealth has been applied in a one-sided manner, you now have pictures which are distorted. So one must strive to spiritualize one's activities such that it brings benefit not only to the individual but to all those who are in the neighborhood. In that case, then one may speak of wealth because it is one for all and all for one. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Sorry, Gregory, I was on mute and I didn't know how to unmute. Sorry, listeners, we're using a new system, and oh, okay. Just excuse me a moment, please, listeners. I need to do something here. I think I put everything on mute by mistake. So I'm trying to unmute everybody. So apologies for that. Sorry. Hello, listeners. Apologies, we got cut off. I'm trying to get used to the new system, and hopefully, you can hear me now. And I'm going to get Gregory back on the system as well to add to the call. Just let me call him now. So, apologies. Yes, hopefully, you're there now. I'm just trying to connect you. In any moment, you'll be with us. Um, so, listeners, we're talking at the concept of freedom, earthly freedom, and the spiritual freedom. Um, and Greg has been explaining that to us. Um, there is a, everything has a context. There's this earthly context, there's the spiritual context, and the spiritual being the higher one. So it has more capability, more ability than the earthly one. We are limited in things on the earthly compared to what the spiritual is. So, Gregory, yes, thank you for, and I apologize, Gregory, for cutting you off and everybody off. Um, I was trying to unmute instead of unmuted. I muted everybody. So, apologies for that. So, now, Gregory, let me look at another thing about freedom. Um, I mentioned about the governments ruling over us, but then sometimes we have even another country, let's say stronger materially or even wealthy materially in that way, ruling over another, let's say materially poor country, like we used to say when there was the old times when there were the empires and such places like this, and and the people who were being ruled would feel their freedom has been restricted, you know, to do what they want to do. Basically, you can even say they were under oppression. Or even if you go back in the Bible with the Jews and they're in Egypt under the Pharaoh, they were under slavery almost for 400 years before Moses came and guided them and released them. After 400, almost 400 years, which is incredible. You know, so what I want to ask you, Gregory, can one, you know, who is somebody who's materially weak or oppressed, can they achieve their sort of this? Of course, earthly we are talking about because that's the world we live in. Can they achieve their freedom without, um, how can I say, guidance and help from the Almighty, like in the case of Prophet Moses coming to the Jews in Egypt, and so it's like somebody who had to be if I use the word hero, but being guided rather than just having a wish to become free, because there's lots of places in the world where everybody wants to be free, but maybe they don't have such strong leader like Moses, and who is being guided, because Moses always was, let's say, under the direction of the Almighty to achieve what he did. Even in quotes, he certain things he did, it looked like they were miracles he was doing, uh, which was, of course, able to overcome the Pharaoh. So, Gregory, my question is this: when a group of people are oppressed, and or let's say even long time, uh, by another country, or somebody materially stronger somehow, uh, can one get freedom by your own work, or must they wait or pray even for a leader from the Almighty to guide to make this happen?
First and foremost, whoever considers itself being superior to other materially and thereby oppresses the other, that personality itself is very weak because it lives in fear. Fear that the other party, whom he or she looks down upon, may turn out to be superior in its activities. That is the cause, or that's the root cause of many a suppression of others. For if the one who claims superiority in material things, if indeed is superior in character, then it would know that just as he himself or herself was guided to be able to come to the helm of affairs of others, if he has not forced himself brutally to the top, in that scenario, the so called superior personality should know that there are responsibilities which are tied to that particular position. It is the violation of such responsibilities that make the so called leader to oppress another. Else, if it is conscious of the responsibilities, knowing fully well what reciprocal activities may subsequently arise, it would not do such. So that is on the part of those who oppress. On those who are oppressed, they are oppressed in the material sense through the restrictions which have been put in place. In the spiritual sense, they cannot be oppressed because, very simply, the spirit is free to make its decisions spiritually. And being spiritual in the sense that it is more agile in its activities, it is more mobile in its activities, it is able to look into the soul of the oppressor and see its limitations. So, the oppression which it's suffered by those of the so-called lower classes, whatever they care to call them, is solely an oppression in the material sense. For that which the individual needs materially to be able to function in all naturalness, that has been so grossly restricted that the oppressed, in order to perform the simplest of tasks, it has to undergo so many a torture. In that particular scenario, should the oppressed, that means those who are oppressed materially, should they bear no hate, but look within and ask in all simplicity for help, then in reciprocal activity, depending on the purity of their thoughts, a way is found. That means through the purity of their thoughts, the reciprocal activity will be such that a way will be found such that such an oppression will become minimized. But there's a caveat. Should that person who was oppressed find a way for its freedom in earthly activities, it should hammer within itself that that which it has suffered in the hands of others, it should not inflict it on others. In that way, spiritually, it will become unburdened for having, having experienced oppression of the highest order materially. It knows the features, the turbulent experiences remain within it. It's able to control this and ensure that in his or her own perception, it is able to draw of the blessings from on high, which are channeled towards him, self or herself, and it is its duty, its responsibility to share it out with others. For he or she who receives must make use of it and pass it on to others, just like you have in music. That it took 400 years for the people of the Jews at that time to become free only tells of the nature in which they themselves had to go through. Strictly speaking, by the time of Moses, only very few of them had that inner purity to be able to attract the likes of Moses. And when, in quotes, they became free, Moses had to lead them from one place to the other, such that in the wilderness they will become used to seclusion and reflect deep within themselves. But sadly, it didn't work out. Because even when Moses came down from the mountain to bring them the commandment, he shattered the tablets of the law, saying he can see that they didn't have use of it. There was no need. So whoever is oppressed, whoever oppresses others, there are lessons to be learned. The lessons of that inner openness that he or she who oppresses others subsequently in their further experiencing, there will be reciprocal activities that will bind them such that they themselves will have to experience what real oppression is. In your question, there was a reference to the possibility that the people who are oppressed, do they have to wait for the likes of Moses? That's waiting for the likes of Moses was only due to their inability. They have become so docile and they were unable to help themselves anymore. However, because few of them had come to the recognition of the uselessness of oppressing others, because they themselves were oppressed, they opened up deep within themselves and they could sense the power that streams from on high, from the light, from a unique point. And in their sufferings, they were able to open up and draw strength. There are many lessons to be learned from these scenarios.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, for this again explanation about this Exodus story that we know from the Bible of the Israelites, finding freedom in the end after being enslaved in Egypt for almost 400 years. But it was the story you could see. It was not one-sided. It covered both the Pharaoh's Egypt and the Pharaoh and the Israelites. There was lessons to be learned from both sides. As we know, nothing happens in a vacuum. So if one person is oppressing or one side is oppressing, the other one is being oppressed, there's lessons to be learned for both sides. So thank you for that explanation. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio, and this is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abdushin. And if you wish to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, message, message.com. And the topic that we're discussing tonight is the key to freedom and happiness. The key to freedom and happiness. You can contact us by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Yes, we welcome any questions or comments. If you're outside of UK, the number is 00447939641958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting. That is Bless Radio 1, that's the number one, .com. If you scroll down on the home page, you'll see a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. And we are all broadcasting, as you know already, on Bless Radio 1, the number one.com. You can also listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, the number one again, space, Grail Message, space, the topic of the show, which tonight is the key to freedom and happiness. And after this show, you can listen to a recording of this show, which is exactly the same way. It's again on YouTube, exactly the same words in the search box, which is Bless Radio 1, the number one there, space, Grail Message, space, the topic of the show, which tonight is the key to freedom and happiness. And of course, you can listen to the recording of our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno. That's ZENO.FM/Bless Radio 1. That's the number one there. Now, we've been talking, about freedom and obviously happiness. They're connected, really, because, in fact, yes, let's look at this, Gregory. Is this freedom, Gregory? I know we've talked about there is some restriction in this freedom because there's a reality that we operate in. Either it's on the earth or it's in the spiritual world. So that is the restriction that we have in that sense. But I was thinking another, let's say, angle, which is if one, let's say, wants to do good or wishes to do good, and or if one wishes to do evil, the choice is there because it's a free choice. What I was wondering is, if one chooses to do evil, is there some more restriction in the way it, happens than when you want to do good? What I'm trying to say, in a way, is good more powerful than evil? The capacity, let me say it this way, is the capacity to do good and the capacity to do evil somehow restricted? Because if you do good, you're more, let's say, powerful in the capability, and if those who do evil, are they less powerful, or is it not? It is just the same. So if you can just explain about this, please, Gregory.
First, when freedom is mentioned, that is tied to the intrinsic abilities of the personalities. So, if you take a very simple example, the freedom to be able to play music, if your abilities are along that direction, yes. But you cannot ask somebody whose abilities are so limited, for instance, in speaking a language, to go and speak the language. It is just not there because he wouldn't even know what to do. So freedom is tied to the abilities or the capabilities which the individual has cultivated. The more the individual has cultivated the talents which have been implanted into it, the freer it is, not only on earth, but also outside the earth. So that freedom is tied to how far the individual has cultivated. That means the maturity of the individual. Then it senses differently. Now, you also mentioned the case of if you wish to do good or not to do good. That which is good from the context or the reference point of the laws of nature, the laws of creation. Why? Because you will find you can't play the role of Robin Hood. You steal from one people and give it to others, and you say, after all, I'm doing good. Or you go to some other places and shoot some people up, take their goods, and then go pass it on to your family, and you say you are doing good to your family. Far from it. Therefore, that which is good in accordance with the laws of creation are also manifested within the laws of creation which are expressed in motion. That means basically that whoever sows, whoever initiates activities, there will be reciprocal activities which will ensure that these reciprocal activities is in accordance with the nature of that which initiated it. So, if it's in accordance with the laws of creation and you gave rise to it, which is supposed to be of benefit to all, that is where you have all for one and one for all, then in reciprocity and in accordance to that in which you have the law of attraction of homogeneity, then you have that when it is ripe, the responses will be of such help, will be of such blessings to the individual who initiated it. In that case, the individual who initiated it will rise higher, even if it had all the oppositions in the world. So it's not that people will say, I wish to do good, and then they go destroying other people somewhere, and then they bring the proceeds to their families or to their family and friends or to their communities, and they say they have done good. No, that which is good in accordance with the living laws of creation. So it becomes very glaring that it is the understanding of these laws of creation which is fundamental. That means they are the key. It is they that help to open or close the path, the door which the human personality, which is of spirit, must then follow here on earth or subsequently hereafter. That is the way creation is. So it's not something which is so limited as to one start comparing goods and bad. No, that which is good must be good in purity in accordance with the laws of creation. Should that be the case, then it will elevate the human personality. When you have such comparison, such as you mentioned, which is a very natural thing for many people, it only means they are considering only the earthly parts. They do not consider what lies behind the earthly parts. For even before they incarnated on earth, they were already existing. And the life on earth is only a short span. So what happens to the rest? Before they incarnated, where were they? When they now drop the physical body, where will they be? These are the things which have to be considered. And only a thorough understanding of these laws of nature, of creation, through personal experience, which personal experience must touch the inner core of man, which is of spirit. Only that will be of value, which they can take away. Whereas they are here, it will help to polish them. Once they depart, then they will be led across such paths where they now have to reap in abundance that which they had sown. If that which they had sown is that of nobility to be of help to others, then there will be multitude of other people who are more knowledgeable, who are wealthier in experience, who are prepared to be of help to it just as he was to others.
Thanks very much, Gregory, for these answers you've given. Uh, about you could say our capabilities of good and evil, and you see, everything as usual is about the context and how you stand. That the results will come according to how you stand and where you are standing. That's how the results will come to us. Um, Now, um, I've got some questions again from my colleague. The name is Mrs. Harriet Jarvis Hoppe, um, and it may seem a bit out of the blue or out of the context sometimes when I read them, but let's see. Let's see what we can make sense of them. She's saying that this is from her own experience with people uh, that she has met. Uh, to in this regard about this topic tonight, which is the key to freedom and happiness. So, okay, so this one says, in a world where the reality of truth or fiction is ever more blurred, where freedom and happiness seem only to be found in movies, video games, musicals, or lottery wins, or the purchasing of physical beauty, how is anyone supposed to know the difference? Let me repeat that. So, in a world where the reality of truth or fiction is ever more blurred, where freedom and happiness seem only to be found in movies, video games, musicals, or lottery wins, or purchasing of physical beauty, how is anyone supposed to know the difference?
Very simply, that which is of fiction basically is highly intellectual, whereas that which is of truth, truth itself does not change. It remains the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And that which is of truth touches the spirit. So one can already see two different categories. Those who strive after that which is material, which is earthly, and hold on to it because it excites the frontal brain, and those who proceed further to that which is of lasting value, that which is of lasting value, which is of the spirit, which is tied to one's intuition. So the individual determines where he or she belongs. So when you have such questions as you have read out, which is basically presenting a picture of the state of many a human personality, one can already find that majority of them only strive after that which is temporal. After all, ask yourself, these so-called video games and all these movies, these are just temporary things. They don't. After one, you're looking for another one. So you keep searching and you are tied to it because it only gives very temporary pleasure. Real happiness does not come from them. But that's where the individual has been able to be of value, of real value to its neighbor, that grants the person real happiness. So it is now the case of temporary pleasure and that which is of value, of real happiness, which springs from the spirit.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, for this answer. You made it very, how can I say, clear um, about telling the difference, that what is really true happiness, or what is true, or what is fiction, even. Um, because one is temporal, as you say, it just lasts a short while, and then you're looking for the next, can I say, hit or something, or high, always looking for more and more and more. That certainly doesn't sound satisfying. While the spiritual one, which is, let's say, what is truth, is more of a different nature, and it is more satisfying, and it lasts actually forever, eternally. You know, once you have, of course, experienced it. Uh, these otherwise all of these words are only theoretical. Until you experience, you cannot say this what is right, if you know it or not. You can't say that until you have experienced it. But yes, so thank you for this answer. Now let me see. um Again, I've got some more questions from my colleague, Harriet Jarvis Hoppe. So she's put this one now. In a world where the value of a life can be traded on the toss of a coin, on some intellectual, never experienced in flesh, assumption that people, animals, and nature are there simply to be bent to the will of whomever wishes it so, where then is to be found the freedom and happiness promised to humanity? In these words, and when are ye come into the kingdom of heaven? So it's a similar question, Gregory, to the one about oppression that I think I put there. But let me just read again this question. In a world where the value of a life can be traded on the toss of a coin, on some intellectual, never experienced in the flesh assumption that people, animals, and nature are there simply to be bent to the will of whomever wishes it so, where then is to be found the freedom and happiness promised to humanity in these words, and yet in these words, and when ye are to come into the kingdom of heaven. I hope you understood that, Gregory. It's quite a long question there.
Those who engage in tossing coins when it comes to the life of others, they themselves have already given expressions of their depravity. For very simply, if that's which they mete out to others, if it were to be done to them, what will be their response? In that case, you find that by their works, by their activities, they brand themselves of their depravity. So, subsequently, through their activities, they filter themselves or they eliminate themselves from the possible kingdom, which kingdom of the Almighty dictates that there must be one for all and all for one. But since in their activities or in their depravity, they only live in intrinsic selfishness, they eliminate themselves. Therefore, those who remain, who do not engage in such, they are the simple ones who, in their purity, in their activities, are the ones who are to form the basis of the kingdom of the Almighty, where there is one for all and all for one. So it is not as difficult as many think. And these processes of self elimination is very simple and glaring. For by their works, one is referring to not only their spiritual works, but also their intellectual works, their thoughts, their deeds. It is through this that people eliminate themselves. How this comes about in the activities, again and again, many who are discerning may examine the works in the light of truth. There, details of the mechanisms in creation, of creation, and the power that drives occurrences in creation are revealed in details.
Thank you very much, Gregory, for this answer. Um, Dear listeners, as Gregory's just mentioned there, if you wish to know more about the spiritual knowledge that we are sharing with you, uh, you can go to this website. This is to know more about the Grail Message in the Light of Truth by Abrushin. So you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that www.grail, Grail, message, message.com. And this is Bless Radio, uh, which and we're have, doing the spiritual discussion program, the aim of which is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message. And every week we have a topic for discussion. The topic tonight is the key to freedom and happiness. You are welcome to join us with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 004479341958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting. That is blessradio1, that's the number one.com. And if you scroll down on the homepage, you'll see a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. And as I say, we are broadcasting on Bless Radio 1, the number one.com. You can also listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box. Bless Radio 1, that's the number one there, space, Grail Message, space, the topic of the show, which tonight is the key to freedom and happiness. And of course, you can listen to the recording of our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno, that's ZENO.FM /Bless Radio 1. That's the number one again. Now, Gregory, again, I'm looking at some questions. Let me see. Okay, I will say this. And of those who truly seem to have found freedom or happiness, do they have a secret that they keep only to themselves, or is it a blessing to the world that each and every single one of us may also have to keep and make one's own forever? So let me repeat that. And of those who truly seem to have found freedom or happiness, do they have a secret that they keep only to themselves, or is it a blessing to the world that each and every single one of us may also have to keep and make one's own forever?
One may just consider the case of one who had found a piece of music which arouses it, touches it in its depth, or one has composed a piece of music. Do they keep the piece of music to themselves, or do they share with others? For that which is noble, which brings freedom in spirit, that may be compared to one having to recognize what light is. And that which the individual has recognized that is of benefit to the spirit is shared. It is not kept away. It is not as challenging as many consider. Well, it is only challenging when one considers these things from an intellectual point of view. That means from an earthly point of view, which is so limiting. Whereas that which is of benefit to the spirit is universal. It liberates it from the pressure, from the slavery, from the oppression which had kept it down. And since it is liberating, it is shared, just like you have with music.
Thanks very much, Gregory, for this answer. In, in a way, these things are really quite easy and clear because when you consider that, let's say, a particular scenario of happiness, some people have happiness and others not having happiness. And when you think of, let's say, there should be love and justice for all, then everybody should have this opportunity, you know, and nobody should be, let's say, more privileged than another. The only thing that, because we all have these abilities uh, to receive and to give, uh, so it's more about applying yourself in any situation that you are. So, and that you choose that direction. Freedom is that what direction you want to go. So it's really, in a way, these things are very neutral. Uh, that's where the freedom is. You choose this direction or you choose another direction, and then you get the reward for making a particular decision. If it's, let's say, working in the right or good direction, then you get the reward equivalent to that. And if you do something to harm or, let's say, yeah, harmful way, then of course you get the result for that. Um, and then the more you put the effort in, the more you can expect the reward to be as well. So yes, so thank you for that. So you, let's say you make your own blessing, if I can say, or you make your own unhappiness. Um, now, Gregory, you know, we sort of uh, think about, let's say we say there's a phrase, where there's a will, there's a way. And so what I'm, and then, there's this thing called reality. You cannot, like I gave this example of where you can't just develop wings just because you wish to have wings, so you want to fly from A to B. Uh, but, you know, yes, you can get from A to B, if, of course, if it's in this world that we're talking about. But how do you get from A to B? Still, yes, might have a wish to fly uh, with your own wings, but that cannot happen, because we are not capable of that. A bird can do that, but we don't have that capability. So, but then they say, where there's a will, there's a way. So, Gregory, is there some, because people, they are inventors, they create new or come up with new ideas or new inventions, because there was a time that we couldn't fly, and then this one time somebody made a plane or invented the plane, and that's how we could fly now. So there is a will there, and that turned into to physical reality. So, one question I want to ask now, Gregory, is yeah, can we? I sort of said this already, but um, let me say like this, Gregory. Say you have a dream for something, especially when you're a child, that you have some. I don't want to use the word fantasy, but some wish to do something. And as a child, you're like an idealistic person, um, uh, and you have a dream. Is this dream, Gregory? Um, how can I say? Is it only about willpower to achieve this dream that you have, or is there maybe some other restriction or barrier to this dream? So, you know, maybe Gregory, what you can talk about is, where does the dream come from? Is it like we say, from your spirit, or from within, or is it something intellectual where you're mechanically um, uh, just coming up with something, so can you just go into this process, Gregory, of what you could say, almost like where there's a reality of your wish, that it can be fulfilled, and sometime you invent something which is not a reality really. So is there a way to know that what is the reality, what can be achieved and what cannot be achieved?
With the so-called dream, a picture is presented to the individual. A picture, that picture, which is more or less not earthly. There are some which are earthly, but when you consider a non-earthly picture presented to the individual, in which it becomes like a task which needs to be fulfilled, then efforts, effort is required. Efforts which swings in purity with reference to that particular task. So without efforts, no matter how beautiful that dream is, you will not get there. The individual needs to have an input of tremendous efforts towards the realization of a picture that has been shown to it. And that is why many people talk of dreams, but they fail to move forward because they just accept it and think that things will just manifest just like that. Effort is needed. Not only effort, but efforts in purity. That means in simplicity. There are many who think they are putting in the right effort, but it is made complicated. Complicated in the sense that it is not done in accordance with the simple laws of nature, of creation. So it has to be very, very clear. Everyone has a dream, but the realization of that dream, no matter how noble it is, requires continuous efforts. It requires patience. It requires perseverance. And that is where many fall by the wayside.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, for this answer. You know, um, really, as we say many times, is really this program is only an introduction, and in the Grail message, you get to see the full picture about this topic or any other topic that we are talking about. So that's where your full clarity will come, listeners, if you have the courage to pick up the Grail message. So yes, we encourage you to do that. Um, Now, just listeners, we may be cutting out in a minute, so because the program we have is not an unlimited program at the software that we are using. So hopefully we can rejoin you in a moment. So apologize for that if you're not able to reconnect. I want to just say that right now before it happens. Um, so yes, and I just want to say. Just to remind you, listeners, if you want to pick up the Grail message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that www.grail, Grail, message, message.com. And just to remind you, the topic we are discussing tonight is the key to freedom and happiness. Oh, amazingly, we are able to continue, so that's great. So now, now, Gregory, um, I wanted to understand: do we actually have this freedom to decide? Does that also have? Um, does it mean that we all? Hello, listeners. We are back. Okay, good. Thank you. Uh, So we are back again, listeners, on the show for Bless Radio. I'm just going to bring Gregory back so that he's also there with us. Just a moment. Yes, this software that we're using, listeners, it lasts minutes and then it cuts out. That's the limit at the moment. We're going to make sure next time that we have let's say, much longer time than that so that we don't have to reconnect. Gregory, can I check you're back now?
Yes, of course, I've been here.
Okay, good. All right. For the listeners, we got cut out, so thank you for being there. Maybe I can do one more question. Yeah, so yes, I was talking about the power, Gregory. Do we human beings, we have the freedom and, we have this ability to have happiness. Do we also have a power, to, let's say, I don't know, to create or to have, because we are creative in our thoughts and ideas, but do we have any as such create really a power as well that we can use uh, to how can I say to that we can, I don't know, that belongs to us, let me say, or is it that we are using a power to make, in this world? How is this, how does that work basically?
As can easily be verified, the human personality relies on the activities of creation, and through these activities in creation, power is mediated to the individual. For before that individual came into existence, this power has always been there. And it is only through this power that it came into existence. It is only through this power that it continues to exist. And therefore, when its activities resonate with that of the laws of creation, then it's able to draw for itself the power that is mediated for its own activities. Therefore, the human personality is dependent on the power that maintains all that exists in nature, in creation.
Thank you very much for explaining that, Gregory. Now, dear listeners, we have come to the end of the show tonight on the topic of the key to freedom and happiness. Hope you've been able to enjoy the discussion despite a couple of interruptions, which I apologize for. Um, the topic I know was an interesting topic um, uh, because that's what people are looking for. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Um, Now, I'm just going to read um, a short text from the forward of the Grail Message, which is titled For Your Guidance. The bandage falls, and belief becomes conviction. Liberation and redemption lie only in conviction. I'm addressing earnest seekers only. They must be able and willing to examine this matter objectively. Religious fanatics and irresponsible enthusiasts may hold aloof, for they are detrimental to the truth. As for the malevolent and prejudiced, they shall find their sentence in the very words. The message will strike only those who still carry within them a spark of truth and the yearning to be true human beings. To all such it will become the shining light and staff. It will lead them unswervingly out of all the chaos of the present day confusion. The following word does not bring a new religion, but is intended as the torch to help all serious listeners or readers find the right path, which leads them to the longed for height. Only he who bestirs himself can advance spiritually. The fool who uses extraneous aids for this, in the form of ready-made opinions of others, only walks his path as if on crutches, while ignoring his own healthy limbs. But the moment he boldly uses all the abilities which lie dormant within him, awaiting his call to help in his ascent, he is employing the talent entrusted to him in accordance with his Creator's will, and will easily overcome all obstacles that seek to divert him. Therefore awake, Genuine faith lies only in conviction, and conviction comes solely through an inflexible weighing and examining. See that you are truly alive in the wonderful creation of your God, Abrushin. So, dear listeners, uh, we, uh, we want to say goodbye now. Gregory, is there anything you'd like to say goodbye?
Wishing the listeners a very beautiful week.
Same from me, listeners. We'll be back as usual next Tuesday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time, with another topic. Take care now. Good night and God bless.